I've got a killer Kalashnikov to show you played in the FIDE World Rapid Team Championship. You might have seen my earlier video where I featured a Sicilian Sveshnikov, so let's compare and contrast. So this was played in the game between Oleg Verbytski and Pepe Cuenca, legendary Spanish commentator. If you haven't seen some of his performances online, then do check him out. Pepe Cuenca, an absolute legend. And he's a regular exponent of the Sicilian Kalashnikov. So let's see how this one went. I should say that his opponent is rated well below him, 1994. But I think this is a very good example of the kind of fate that can befall white if you're not really familiar with this opening. So let me just go back again. So in this position, knight f6, knight c3, e5, that's the Sveshnikov. So do check out the game Aronian Rapport if you want to have a look at that. But e5, so this leads to the Kalashnikov after knight b5, d6, and this is how this game went. Knight c3. So we've seen plenty of games with the Morozzi, that's the big alternative, and knight c3 is the other main line. And that gives black the chance to push this knight round. And this is the problem. For white, it takes time for this knight to be recycled. In the meantime, black is developing. Bishop e7. So this is the move that I recommend in my book and the Chessable course as well. Do check out. If you prefer to consume your material online, then yeah, you can get it as a Chessable course. And you could say the main line is knight c4, bringing this knight around here, but it takes time. But a very popular move here, the second most popular move, and I see this in a lot of games at a slightly lower level, knight d5. So the knight just hits the outpost straight away. And now the best move is to play knight f6, immediately challenging that knight. Now here, white played bishop e3. Again, quite a popular move actually, but I don't think terribly good. So obviously there's a threat to bring one of these pieces in here. So the knight gets exchanged off. And black has a choice. Funnily enough, if the knight retreats here, then we transpose to that Sveshnikov line that I was looking at earlier in Aronian against Rapport. And I think this is a very reasonable move. So it's not quite the same as the game we looked at, but the structure is the same. So we have this situation where white has a queenside majority and black has the kingside pawn majority. And I think that's quite good fun for black to play. But there is an alternative here. You don't actually have to retreat. You can play knight d4. Why not go forward? Because if the knight is pushed, then it bounces around to the king's side with tempo, threatening to exchange off that lovely bishop. And then once it's there, then it can always move here, and then you get the f-pawn going, but the knight is on the attacking side of the board. In my book, I mean, I looked at this variation. I write about this whole variation that as white has neglected his kingside development and the knight on a3 is poorly placed, there is potential for black to cause an upset. Well, just wait and see. Now, probably best is to bring this bishop out and castle as quickly as possible. But as I said, I quite like black's position. But white took the bait. And I think I've looked at this in some games on the channel before, actually. This is so risky because this bishop on e7 doesn't have an opponent now. So it can operate on this long diagonal without being opposed by a dark squared bishop. And that is so dangerous. So Pepe castled. Bishop e2. Bishop f6. All very straightforward. Slicing across the position. So if the queen retreats, let's say to d2, then already bishop b2 wins material. So queen b4 played. And then, of course, rook e8 with a horrible pin. And in the book, I reached exactly this position in the book. And I wrote, after rook e8, it will be difficult for white to bring the king to safety. Well, ain't that the truth? Watch what happens. c3. Okay, trying to shut out this bishop. Queen e7. Hitting the bishop here. Threatening checkmate. So queen c4. Now, there are lots of good moves here, but bishop f5 is excellent. So that takes away the d3 square from the queen. Still not possible to castle because of queen takes bishop. Winning a piece. So already, well, what does white do? It's just a horrible position to play. Absolutely horrible. White played king f1. And then rook c8. Put an end to it all, just like that. So the queen protects the bishop. And where can it go? I'm afraid it can't go back to d3 because of the bishop on f5. Obviously can't go to b5 because of the pawn. Can't go to g4 to protect the bishop because of the bishop. It's already game over. What an absolute triumph for the bishops. Well, look at all black's pieces. Wonderful. Yeah, it's game over. So white resigned. Wow, what a crush. But I find it very interesting that knight d5 is played so often at kind of lower levels mainly. I mean, maybe just it looks so inviting, it's not opposed, but after knight f6, you know, this is already puts pressure on white. And black's results with this have been very good indeed. I'll put some links to some of my old videos down in the comments, so you can check those out just to see how dangerous this is. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed those two games. Do join us for live commentary on the official site of the FIDE World Rapid and Blitz Team Championships taking place in London. So our games start at 2 p.m. and there are 4 games today and 4 games tomorrow, 12 rounds in total. Hopefully see you there. Thanks, bye.